I have a story about something that happened to my friend from Mexico. He lived in Calaya de Castro, Oaxaca, Mexico, and he was walking home from orchestra practice one day, which is about a 20-minute walk across a field. He has to pass beside a small cliff along the way. As he's passing the cliff, he hears a noise, like someone running up the cliff. This is next to impossible. It's too steep. Suddenly a dog comes up over the side of the cliff and stops in front of my friend. This dog opens its mouth and smiles at him. My friend is terrified, but he can't move or scream. Then, the dog stands up on two legs and starts to sort of dance in front of him while laughing like a human. Then the dog drops back down on four legs and runs back over the side of the cliff. My friend runs back to his house and doesn't tell anyone. The next day, he gets really sick. The doctors are stumped. He tells my friend's family, "This sickness isn't like anything I've ever seen." His family decides to take him to a shaman, and the shaman tells them that my friend is about to die. He had been hexed by an owl who carried a grudge against my friend's father. An owl is a shaman that can transform into animals, usually dogs. My friend has never told this story to me directly, and he always seemed to hate the paranormal. But his cousin knew about the event and he told it to me, a story from Monterrey. The church cathedral here is rather small, but the bishop stayed in a palace built on a large hill. The distance from the palace to the cathedral is maybe 5 miles, and there was an underground tunnel that linked the two places. According to legend, that tunnel is filled with the corpses of aborted fetuses. The priests would often rape the nuns that stayed with them. Then they'd take them down into the tunnels and force them to get rid of the babies. Not only is this true, but there have been discoveries of nuns who were impregnated by the priests and their bodies were discovered in the church walls. I think they refer to these nuns' bodies as empedradas, a word derived from the word for stone, indicating these women's bodies were buried behind the stone walls. There's also a church that was renovated near my grandparents' village where skeletal remains of once pregnant nuns were discovered. A gang operating out of the Santa Elena Ranch in Matamoros, Mexico, right on the border with Texas, used to transport a ton of marijuana every week into the United States. However, they were more than merely drug distributors. In 1989 this gang was accused of murdering people in gruesome rituals characteristic of the Palomomb cult. The satanic narcos had turned the Santa Elena Ranch into a real-life house of horrors. On April 9, 1989, police pulled over a van for speeding on the Matamoros-Reynosa highway near the Santa Elena Ranch. They wound up detaining the driver, one David Serna Valdez, age 22, after discovering marijuana and a .38 caliber pistol in the van. After hours of police questioning, the young man finally broke down and confessed that he belonged to a religious sect that practiced black magic. This confession surprised police. They went back to search the Santa Elena Ranch, where they discovered 110 kilos of marijuana and something even more macabre. Outside the house was a mass grave containing 12 dismembered corpses, whose hearts and brains had all been removed. Even stranger, these murders seemed to be part of some obscene ritual, evidenced by an iron cauldron that gave off a foul stench. Police examined it and found that it contained dried blood, a human brain, cigarette butts, 40 empty bottles of brandy, machetes, garlic, and a roasted turtle. One of the corpses was later identified as Mark Kilroy, a medical student who disappeared in March 1989. Both of his legs had been amputated and his brain had been removed. The group leader of the gang had turned a piece of his spine into a pin which he wore on his tie as an amulet. Regarding Nahuale, which are our version of skinwalkers, it is often told stories about them through all Mexico. To what I can only think of are vestiges of a Maine tribe that got segregated while they populated the American continent. That would explain why Native American tribes have a shapeshifter creature, skinwalkers, wendigos, etc. Lore. Gnolls are shamans that acquire this power after, allegedly, murdering a relative, having sex with the corpse and then devouring the flesh of it. Then they are said to gain shape-shifting abilities. This however is limited to one animal per session, and while in the body of the animal the original body of the gnoll is exposed, so they must remain hidden from threats. They require an animal part to shapeshift into it, and they are abnormally tough in animal form, so gunshots and melee attacks are somewhat ineffective. Most of the reports are from big dogs, which after being exposed walk in two legs and attack. Here's an anecdote from a relative. Back in the 70s he said that he was coming back to his home. He noticed this big dog with bright red eyes tagging along him. The dog was bigger than the usual strays that would roam in the, at that time, rural road. He then, after he passed by the local chapel, noticed how the dog stood up and walked in two legs beside him. My relative ran away until he reached his house. He told the rest of the family about it and they remained baffled at the event. This however did not repeat itself. My dad is from Michoacan. In his hometown and the surrounding area, witchcraft was a common thing. People knew who the local witches were and also who might be because of all the rumors. He mentioned that since witchcraft was so rampant, he would see these balls of fire in the open plains that would slowly rise. People believe these orbs are witches flying around. One story he told me involved him and his half-brother, or cousin, I forget. They needed to get back home to the ranch before sunset because everyone knew that the local witches roamed around at night. He said they were riding their bikes and came to a hill. In the far distance, they saw two glowing orbs like fireballs. They were just floating out there on the plains. Then the orbs slowly rose up into the air and looked to be heading their way. They hauled ass on their bikes, trying to outrun these witches. Soon they saw the lights of the ranch and felt relief. He said once they entered the ranch grounds he looked back and the orbs were gone. I heard a legend from South Mexico of a witch that sucks the blood of infants while the parents are sleeping. It's said that the witch removes her legs and grows wings. Then she flies around looking for a house with a baby in it. In the Mexican witchcraft tradition, witches have to give up their ability to walk in exchange for the ability to fly, so they cut off their legs or their feet. If they want to change back to a human, they have to cut off their wings and reattach their feet. A defense against these witches is to find out where they do this ritual and wait for them to fly away. Once they're gone, take their severed feet and bury them someplace they won't look and they won't be able to resume their human form. As for protecting the babies, they say baptism works. Witches will avoid baptized babies and target those that are not baptized. A different form of protection is to place a mirror or any reflective surface under the baby so that when the witch picks it up to suck its blood she will catch her own reflection and see herself in her transformed state. This will cause her to put the baby back and flee. One story that I heard is about the Narcos. I live near the border, and many people here cross over into the States to buy clothes and electronics, or just to go enjoy themselves on their days off. Recently, however, the violence near the border has been out of control. So there are several rules you must follow in order to have a safe trip. One of them is do not drive at night. So the story I heard was about a woman and her daughter. They decided to go to McAllen to do some shopping. The woman's husband was very busy with work and couldn't accompany them, so he told her that if it gets too late to just stay there and come back the next day. The mother and her daughter go and they spend the day shopping. Sure enough, it gets late, but the woman thought her husband was just being overprotective. She decided to go ahead and drive back after dark. The first part of the trip is fine. But then they come to a line of trucks blocking the road, with some men standing around holding automatic rifles. The woman slows down, and a man approaches the car, asks them what are they doing, why are they on the road after dark, etc. The woman is scared to death, and she tries to explain that they went to McAllen just to buy some stuff, and that they are no threat. The man asks her to open the trunk of the car, which the woman does. Another man searches the trunk and then asks them to step out of the vehicle so he can inspect that too. While this is happening, the first man looks at the woman and in an almost paternal way asks, "Why are you here right now? Don't you know it's dangerous?" "My husband told me," she said, "but I didn't listen." The men finish searching the car. Everything seems okay. The mother and daughter get back in the car and the first man looks at them. "Okay, go on ahead. And next time," He leans in, "Listen to your husband." The trucks allow them to pass, and as the woman drives ahead she sees several corpses on the side of the road and later on some burning trucks as well. The women are scared and shaking, but relieved. When they reach home, the woman tells her husband what happened with tears in her eyes. The husband is angry but glad that nothing bad happened. Then the two go outside to unload the trunk. When they open it, they find two severed heads sitting on top of their stuff. This is a modern legend about the narcos that I heard here in the northeast part of Mexico. It's an interesting bit of folklore. I think it might have just been made up to promote the idea that women should listen to their husbands. I'm not sure. Either way, hope you liked it.